Hello, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Capital Improvement Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 12th at 2025 at 2:05 PM. In your packet, you're gonna have estimate from the school for the primary school roof repair or replacement that we talked about in previous meetings. We also have an estimate for Renard HVAC. That's for the climate control for the document storage room that we're going to create in the locker room downstairs. You also have from the fire department a quote for the new ambulance and the related equipment that has to go into that. The number that is in there is off a little bit. It's because there was a misunderstanding. What we had done at the last meeting, town meeting, is we voted to put one of those, the last online item, the CPR machine, the Lucas 3, on the capital budget, and then also through the budget process, there was the second one, because of the urgency, was put into their operating budget. And there was a misunderstanding, and they thought they only had funding for one, because it got a little confusing, but that's been cleared up, so that item will come off, that $18,624.68 off of that budget. Currently, I just want to explain things, and then we'll go through our normal process, and we'll decide whatever we decide as a group. If everybody recalls, we have a request for a tanker truck from the fire department, and at the same time, we had received this estimate for the primary school roof for a repair or a replacement. Doesn't make much sense to repair a 30-year-old roof, but that's just my opinion. Talk to the highway department, the fire department, and they can hold off another year for that truck replacement. I believe that's the 2001. Is that correct?
Pretty sure.
It's an 04, yeah, it's an 01 because the ladder truck's an 05. The 2001 truck, it's getting up there, it's starting to get a few little issues, so it's time for replacement, but they can squeak another year out of it. The school department is currently applied to the Mass School Building Authority, MSBA, for some sort of program they have for school roofs. We won't know that answer probably until the fall. Again, we're going to go through this process. It's up to everybody. I'm just sharing my thoughts. I think it may be wise to hold off on the majority of our capital items, with the exception of the Chapter 90 match, the $100,000 that we put into the special stabilization account. To see what's going on with that, we'll have better information, we can make a better decision, and we can revisit it back in the fall and probably address some of these items that we have on here. The turnback money that we have from previous projects it amounts to about $75,000 and a couple $100. On this list that we have from our previous capital list, that would be this year that we're voting on, the Bunsen burners have already been taken care of by the school, so that is off our list. The Douglas High School steamer has also been taken care of, and they found a way to get that done. That's also off our list. The 2 cardiac monitors are part of the ambulance proposal that's in here. If you see that everything is a 1, and until you get to the cardiac monitors, and there's 2 of them on there. That's to replace the 2 units that you have for the 2 ambulances. And then the rest of the items as follows, right? The municipal flooring copper replacement, first and second floor renovations, document digitizer phase 1, the highway department backhoe and plow, the highway department pickup truck and plow, and then the transfer to capital. So I did reach out to the highway superintendent, and he confirmed that he would prefer to wait until he has a DPW to park that backhoe inside. It is getting to the point where it's going to have to be replaced at some point, but it doesn't need to be replaced today. And he can also hold off on that pickup truck and the plow. So that gives us a little breathing room so we're not struggling through this process. The final thing that I want to say is, in our haste to create our 5-year plan, if everybody recalls fiscal year 2029, we got a little crazy with our list, and we're at $2,940,000, which is an unrealistic number that we would ever spend unless we get really lucky. Looking at that list, as a suggestion, we could potentially move the tanker truck, the highway grader, which together that's 1.280. Move that to the following year, start creating a fiscal year 30, because we have to come up with a 5-year plan anyways. And that'll help settle down that number that we have there, bring it back to a more realistic number. So with that, I'll open it up to anybody that has any comments on any, or questions on any of this stuff.
I have a couple
Yep.
questions, comments, or suggestions. On our expensive fleet folks, basically highway and fire department, can we get a schedule what vehicles they have and what year they are? Because I'm losing track of the dump trucks.
Yeah, we have that because of Maya. We have a complete list of all our assets that way. So is that something we could share with the group, Matt, at some point?
Just to be able to see that,
Yep.
the 5 trucks for highway in 2030. Trying to keep the rotations, we're not to buy 5 trucks.
Well, that's the struggle that we're going through, right? We just ordered, 2 years in a row, we just ordered two of our large dump trucks. So,
And they're all going to come in at once.
and we have the same problem with the ambulances, because one's an 18, one's a 19, right? We're ordering one now, and then I don't know when they're going to order the other one. I think they're trying to get rid of that diesel because it's problematic.
I think that'd be helpful for
Yep.
us to see that.
Yep.
And I think the police is mostly in the operational budget.
Yeah, they take care of theirs in operation, correct,
And
Matt?
they're 80,000, not 300
Yeah.
or 400.
Yeah. Yeah, they have, I think they have a program set up. They do a couple a year and then skip a year. Yeah.
So that, and, could we get to a point where if we know DPW is replacing a $500,000 truck or a $400,000 truck every year, that we find a way to get that into the operation? Now, this is a larger question, I think, for this board, but is that something we look at? Or do we-
Yeah, well, that is past our purview. That would fall under the town administrator and the finance committee, I would think. It's a good suggestion, but I want to be cautious as to how far we venture outside the lines, that's all. Yes, Mr. Vandenberg.
So the 1.269 mil, are we pretty comfortable with that total? Just,
26?
On 26?
yeah. Are we pretty comfortable with that?
Well, we're not going to be doing that right now. So back up a little
Is
bit.
that how much we'll have to spend?
If we went with this current list, yes, but that's, my thoughts are we're not necessarily going to be going in this list, because we have the school got thrown into the mix, that primary school roof, that we don't even have that anywhere here, right? That got put into it. Some of these other things have been taken care of. The first and second floor renovation isn't going to happen until after And that's design money, that's, so everybody's clear, that's not going to renovate this building. That's going to be after we start doing something, get this DPW, Depot Street water line straightened out. But that's what part of this, we're doing, as we can, we're trying to do little steps to keep the process moving. That's why we're looking into the climate control, the document storage room. One of the bigger problems that we have is all this document storage that we have. That's on digitizing that I believe it's on this list as well. That's something that's going to need to be taken care of. But until we know what's going on with this roof, I'm kind of hesitant to encourage anybody to push too far into this list.
But are we pretty confident that when it comes time to make our final list, this is the amount of money we'll have to spend, the 1.26?
It'll be more.
Really?
Everything goes up. It's like every year we have the same problem. We start with $230,000 for the dump truck, and we ended up at $285 the following year. It's like everything's crazy is how the numbers are going.
Does this all come from free cash?
Not with this stuff on the list, except for anything ambulance related is coming out of the ambulance receipts.
Okay. Is there a lot of pressure on free cash for the 26 budget?
You want me to answer?
Yes, please.
If you don't mind me asking.
No?
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more long-winded than just simple yes or no. The operational budget of the town is under considerable pressure for this coming fiscal '26, and probably for at least 1 or 2 years after that, because we don't have that follow-on project that we thought we'd have by now, either at Pine Sand and Gravel or nearby. So that time frame, as it gets pushed out, in terms of operating revenue possibilities, we have the build-out at the existing warehouse, which will go through a 2-year process of being incorporated new growth, and then the following year into the levy. But our financial position, in terms of our reserve position, is stronger than it's ever been, and I don't really see it eroding as long as we're cautious about how we spend on capital and measure it out year by year. And that's because we primarily fund that through unanticipated revenues, turnbacks from the departments, and one-time events. And I think we can chuff along with one-time events that will continue to fund, continue to rebuild free cash every year. So to that end, this year I have every reason to think that we'll be releasing some of the overlay back, which was an excessive amount. We're looking at the sale of 11 Gleason Court, potential sale of a piece of property next to the Cubes at Gilboa, the 17 acres that are going on the warrant. So those one-time events will close to free cash. And then we're closing out our surplus at MSHG, which is part of the complexity here that we'll speak to in a second. But we have received correspondence from the treasurer of MSHGC certifying our existing surplus as of January 31st at $1.0495 million. Now, we have a run out that we have to fund, and that may erode that 1 million, may even take most of the $1 million, but the group is at least acknowledging that we have a surplus and that they anticipate having to pay it to us. And the question is, how big will our run out be? And that's a wild card. I don't know the answer to that question sitting here right now. So when I look at how we're going to replenish free cash over the next several years, I don't think it's going to change much. The funding source will always be different, but there's always something in line to happen that year. By the time we close on Gleason Court and the 17 acres, it's not going to close to free cash. It won't be certified in free cash until October 26, right? So that's going to be your fiscal 27 capital budget. But I can see our way to that. This transition that we're going through right now, though, puts us in this spot where having the fully fleshed out capital budget for ATM on May 5th is not wise. So We're going to leave the health insurance group as of July 1st. We will still have claims that will come into that group from events prior to June 30th and before, but we won't be paying premium into the group. So that's where they're probably just going to deduct it from our surplus just to reduce the amount of money they have to come up with to pay us. So they're going to pay our claims, even though we're not paying the premium in. The difficulty that we have planning is that the group does not appear to have the resources to pay our runout. So on the advice of our broker and our town council and everybody close to the issue, we will hold free cash back in Douglas just in case this financial arrangement with the group doesn't pan out the way we want it to. So our runout will still be paid, and we won't have a bad relationship with our network, our provider network. If it works out the way we want it to, we won't use any of that free cash for the runout. The group will pay the runout, and we'll get whatever surplus we have left goes to free cash. But again, that'll be in fiscal '26. It'll come in and it'll be certified for fiscal '27.
Can I just ask a question? I'm not intimate with all the insurance stuff. I thought you were doing self-insurance.
We are.
So in one sentence, no more than 20 words, explain it to me, please.
So we are self-insured, we pay into our own, but we're going to change the way we do it. So right now, we're in a group, we're going to leave that group.
How many communities are in the group?
Right now, there's 21.
So that's what it is. We're not individually insured as an individual town. We're in with 21 other communities.
Yeah, it's even more complicated than that, but Elliot doesn't want to hear the individually rated
Yeah.
stuff. But we're able to, we have our own accounting. We have our own, the treasurer maintains a balance for each individual member of the group on its own. And when we decided to leave, they will owe us whatever surplus we have, because we've overfunded, which is actually the prudent way to do this over the course of several years.
So where are we going?
We're going to be, I'm trying not to let people I don't care for use public records to determine what I'm doing next, but there will be a group.
Yeah.
It will be structured differently than the existing one. There will be more individual independence for each of the group members. And it won't be as big to begin with, but we're not going to be going it alone because that's very unwise. We'll probably partner with 4 or 5 other entities to form a purchasing block for those things where numbers, volume matters. So the more covered lives, the lower the rate you pay.
Yeah.
But in terms of paying our own claims, we are self-insured completely now, and we will be after July 1st.
Yeah.
We're going to use the same network, the same
Yeah, you're getting.
claims administrator.
Well, I was going to stop Matt after he finished his statement. I don't even want to go down that path too far because that's not capital.
No.
That's a different
Yeah,
discussion.
it's
So
just something that I hadn't heard.
no, I get it.
But there's a very important point I want to make, which is if you're all by yourself and you have your own fund, just the town of Douglas, or a bigger town of Stoughton, the Division of Local Services has issued an edict that says anything you put in your health claims fund can only be used for health claims. But because we're in a group, they say they don't regulate it. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So if they're not going to regulate how funds are being used in the health fund, when we take our surplus out, it's going to close to free cash. It's not going to go to a health insurance trust fund. So it will come back to the town. So when I say we're going to be able to, there will be money in closing to free cash that's going to be discussed by the leadership of the town, how to use it, rather than have it just go over to another health fund. Now, we may use some of it to fund a future health fund, but that's not my decision to make, it's for the select board to make.
And that money could potentially help us on our capital
I mean,
list,
$1
correct?
million is a lot of money for the town of Douglas, so, I mean,
Anybody have any capital-related questions?
So, Mike, I have one,
Yeah,
and I have my FinCom hat on now, but
yeah, just be careful, because I'll stop you. Go ahead.
when capital comes before us in 2 weeks,
Yep.
do you feel pretty confident that the numbers will be pretty solid at that point for whatever is on the list?
Oh, they're going to have to be, because we close out the warrant on the 18th, so we have to be confident what our decision is today. And then
Okay.
I am going to ask the group to allow it to be open-ended a little bit, because 1 or 2 items, I want to be sure that the quotes that were given us aren't 6 months old or 12 months old. I want a current quote, and in my own head, you'll see that I always suggest that we go a couple $1,000 more than what it is on a small item, like 5%, something like that, just to make sure it gets done, because if we're at $10 short, they're not getting their project done, or request done, and then it's stuck in nowhere's land for a year, or 6 months, whatever it takes to get to the next meeting.
Yeah, so that was behind my earlier question about are we comfortable with this 1.2 million as our money to play
In a
with?
general thought, yes, but that's,
Okay,
I'm not totally in agreement that that's where we are. The path that we're going down because of the school roof issue that's up in the air, we'd be foolish not to protect our assets. A roof is a very important thing, especially on something that large of a building. If it was to leak, it could be catastrophic for us. So,
so if a lot of the money that we use on the capital list comes from free cash,
no, so it comes from free cash.
and there's
so-
pressure on free cash
Yep, yep,
elsewhere.
Yep. Back up for a second. The $500,000, it's like 484 or something like that we came up with, Gene, for the ambulance.
That's 194.
494. I knew there was a 4 and a 4 in there. 494, that comes out of ambulance receipts. That doesn't affect us in free cash at all, right? The only thing that's going to affect us in free cash, if we choose to do it this way, and I'm very cautious to keep reaffirming that, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. If we do the 390 road repair match, right, the Chapter 90 match, 360, and we should maintain, putting in my opinion, maintain that 100,000 into the special stabilization account, because we're going to buy a fire truck anyways. So if we can save a couple pennies along the way, it's only going to help us in the future, because years past, that's what that evolved out of, that a fire truck would come in and wipes out our entire budget. Now we have nothing to work with. So that's why we came up to that. We're probably about 300,000 into that now, into that account, you think, Gene? Somewhere, it's either 300, I think it's 300 this year. This is the third time that we'll be putting money into that, which will go a long way, since the fire trucks used to be 350,000, now they're 750,000. Anybody else have any questions for capital? No? Shirley? Yeah, go ahead, Ellie.
No, that's all right. I'm listening.
It's not really capital, but it is, what are the little, the things that are, that the library has one, the senior center has one for jump-starting dead people?
the AEDs, automatic defibrillators.
I'm not dead yet.
You're right, you pretty much have to be dead to get a shock, yes.
You have to be, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't really work otherwise.
Well, so the library has one.
I'm glad you dumbed it down from people like me.
Well, I'm not that smart. So what I'm wondering is, wasn't there a grant for these AEDs several years ago?
Yes.
And then I think I questioned, why didn't the library get one too? and then all of a sudden the library gets one, and now we have to pay for it.
You wanted it.
I know, but isn't it?
It's like being a kid and asking for your first car. Now you gotta buy tires.
My car came with.
So now that we've discovered what this device is and that you have to pay for it, what was your question?
Why does individual departments have to pay for these ADTs, which it was never part of?
How expensive are they, Matt?
I don't know.
Any,
What did you put in
They're
your
over
budget?
5,000, I just bought one.
over 5,000, so is that something that's put into their operating budget?
We haven't replaced one since we got
No.
them, so.
But the cardiac monitor you have on here is way different than the AED.
Yeah, well,
Just saying.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
No,
That's why I
don't,
did
stay
that
off the list.
ADT.
Let's stay on that one. Yeah. I don't even know what the life expectancy, what I would do is suggest that if you're concerned about it, reach out to the, either the fire chief or the deputy fire chief and get their input as to what the life expectancy is of those things and whether or not they need to be tested or something.
I think that, we do test them regularly, and I think we replaced the pads
The battery.
and the battery. But I think the hardware itself is good.
Just, yeah. Yeah.
We don't use it, so it's not good.
Okay, I just think it's something that the individual departments shouldn't have to do. That wasn't their primary purpose. I think it's better coming from something like the fire department or ambulance people. So,
I disagree with that, but that's okay. Because that's not, the ambulance receipts are, that's equipment that they use for that generates that fund, right? They don't have little satellite locations around town that you're getting to send them customers.
yeah, we want them at the library.
Yeah,
Okay, I have another question.
go ahead.
And this has to do with archival stuff for the historic records in Riverdale. And again, this is not really capital, it's more operational.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping that, that the powers that be, the town clerk and stuff, would reach out to the archivist that is at the library right now for advice on how to classify things in a logical way. Or,
That's been part of the ongoing conversation that it constantly gets mentioned, that there is somebody over there that has that specialty. And I would assume that would be
yeah, and
utilized,
I've
not
asked her
in
recently
not
whether
in the,
she's been approached and she says no. So, that's all. She hasn't been talked to in 2 years. I
Okay.
think I mentioned it to her 2 years ago.
Okay.
She said, and so I'm just bringing that.
Yep, and as you pointed out, that would fall, the historic records and stuff like that, I believe fall under the town clerk, so that would be the best office to talk to, get them to engage in that conversation. We can't give them that, we don't give them that direction from the Capitol.
Yeah, but I think somebody in town, and it could be Matt, could suggest.
You keep pointing over here like
No, I
somebody's
think,
behind me.
I think he's doing town planning. Oh, not that, Matt? All right. No,
Rather than go around and around and around, I'll answer.
yeah.
If you look at the logical progression of what we need to do at the municipal center, resolution of the documents on the second floor is the next step. Because you want to clear out the floor. You don't want to install sprinklers up there while you have all your documents below it, because you don't want to have that, our luck would be to have that one unfortunate incident or even just a test, and then you've ruined a bunch of stuff. We did go out and get a bid. It was $330,000, and it was discussed at Capitol because there's an element, you're building an asset that's going to last forever. So it looks, it's electronic, but it's capital. It doesn't have to be tangible to be capital. It was too much money, and it was not as high a priority as some other things. Now, a lot of higher priority items have been moved off the list because they've been funded. So now we're getting to this point where the rubber's going to hit the road. It is not my call necessarily, it's the town clerk's call. However, I would say that if anybody asks me, I think we should parallel track two different projects. One is our historic documents. We have a lot of stuff upstairs that's really old and should be dealt with respect by a specialist who understands how to manage those documents. Then we have file cabinets full of stuff that's actually fairly recent. If it doesn't need to be retained, it should be disposed of. We've got senior work-off people working up there every day, either organizing things or getting rid of duplicates. And we've moved the weight load around up there so we don't have all the documents in one room, making the floor sag, little things like that. I don't think it's a good use of the archivist's time, though, to have her stand in front of a scanner with great big piles of paper and watching the scanner
No,
process.
no.
So that's a service. That will still, in my mind, that's still going to be a capital item, because you're going to pay way over 10 grand to have someone who has a specialty equipment. Usually they're going to bring it here with a workforce, and they're going to use their own method for organizing the tree, the
And
file
and
system.
somebody like Iron Mountain out in the parking lot, taking all the stuff and grinding it up.
If it can be disposed of. If it
Right.
can't be disposed of, we need to put it in a place that's climate controlled, that's not going to flood.
No, I'm just saying also that I remember being a little concerned when it was all brought to us by the building inspector initially. It wasn't the town clerk. And that, what sort of experience does he have in creating classifications for an archive? We have somebody that's been trained this way, went to Simmons and stuff like that.
Yeah, but, so the building official is talking about something very specific that's called the street file, that we don't have fully developed in Douglas. So I can't go to a file, pull a street address, and see everything that's ever been done there. Construction, plans, building permits, tax cards, that's not all in one place. That's what he was talking about, going back through all the old building permit records, conservation, and even Board of Health, and marrying all those files into a street file, which would be tedious but not difficult, right? You've just got to make sure you're taking 2 Conservation Drive from this file, 2 Conservation Drive from that file, 2 Conservation Drive, and marrying them all together electronically, so when I click on a folder that says 2 Conservation Drive, I want to see everything. That's what he was talking about. The reason why that's really important for him, and he was pitching it as an independent project, is first of all, his records are independent, so they're not married with anybody else's. He has file cabinets full of building permit data. Is during the enforcement process, sometimes it's very important to look back and see if somebody pulled a permit, how old is the permit, what do they declare in the permit they were doing for work? Because he might go do an inspection and see that a whole bunch of additional work was done that was never permitted. He needs to have the information database to draw from, and right now he doesn't. We only go back so far. So as long as Jackie's been here, everything's been super organized. But before that, it was, filing existed, filing was done in that department, making a stack of paper and then bringing it upstairs when it got to be a certain height. But that's very different from the handwritten town meeting minutes, all
That
the
room right over there
really, all the really
holds a lot
cool
of that
stuff that we
old
have
stuff,
in this
yeah.
building. We've got to get it in a safe place and digitize it so it's not lost. And then move the hard copies to a safe location, probably in this building, before we can even think about doing anything else upstairs.
Talk to Rebecca.
Certainly to 2026, if I have my notes correct. Trying to keep up with what was crossed off, no longer needed, already done. Are we really looking at this point? Paving, transfer to capital stabilization, and I wrote 25 for the HVAC for the,
Yeah, it came in at $21,630. I think we should probably put $23,000 on it. I had it requoted twice in the last 3 months, and it stays the same, but we have to make it to,
But that's all we're looking at today. Everything else has either been already done
The-
or removed by the department head.
correct, or agreed that we could suspend it temporarily until we get through this spring meeting. Everything settles down and we start getting better information to find out where we're going with the primary school roof. And it's going to need to be fixed. So if we can get some funding from the state, that would be welcome to all of us sitting there.
Using those other things in the fall.
Right, yep. So the, one other thing is, so we had the 75,000 and change, a couple $100 left on the turn back money. One's in talking with Gene, on the highway loader with the plow, there was a turn back of $58,000. So with the document storage of 23,000 and potentially that the school department front-mounted field mower replacement of 29,547. That's the one that I actually want to make sure that we have a really recent quote on that. I don't know. That number seems very familiar, and I think it's been there for a little bit, so I want to make sure it's accurate. So if we use 23,000 for the document storage and say 30,000 for the front mower, that's 53. We can draw down, we don't have to close out the highway loader account. We could draw that down to satisfy those two things. And what that would do for us is leave that money, that account still open, so then we could still use it for future capital items to add to other turnback monies. If we close out the whole thing, whatever we don't use gets reverted back to free cash, and it makes it more difficult to fund capital items, especially the small ones. But that's something that wouldn't affect free cash at all, that we would be able to get that mower. They already bought the Bunsen burners, and they bought that steamer. So those two things total 35,000. They found a way to get those funded on their own. That at least get that piece of equipment replaced for the school department, and I'm sure it's an important piece if it's a field mower.
So we're looking at 4 things then. The mower,
So I just, in my head, it's separated. So under the ambulance receipts, the request is for the funding of the ambulance with the associated equipment. That's one. Then the Chapter 90, 360, then the 100,000 for the fire department, and then the front-mounted mower for the fields. That's 4 items.
and then not doing the HVAC.
Oh, and the HVAC. So that's 5 items. Okay.
Missing the
Yep,
ambulance,
no.
but it was not in the capital.
Yep.
Yeah, back in '23, it was still 29,000. So
Well, that's why I said the number's very familiar. I don't think it's changed in a couple of years, so that could easily eat up that extra $5,000. And then what I would be looking for, if we choose to do that, what I would be looking for from the group is to agree to get the updated quote. We don't have a lot of time unless you want to meet before the 18th. We need to have this done, so the warrant's getting closed on the 18th at the selectmen's meeting, so this has to be done. If you want to meet again Monday, we could do that, just to confirm that number. But I want some flexibility, so if their quote comes in higher, that we can still fund that piece of equipment. I don't think it would go up 20%, but who knows, because that quote is old, as you pointed out, so I have no idea. We just spent $15,000, I think, apiece for 2 mowers for the highway department, and they were much smaller mowers.
is there anything in motion to put the 4 on for now and then meet again on the school when we have a better quote? Not hold up the ambulance, paving, fire department,
Is everybody available for Monday?
I won't be here Monday.
He's not here. You're available? You available, Shirley?
Monday is the 17th.
Yeah.
You said the 18th.
18th, well, we can meet on the 18th, as long as it's before the selectmen's meeting, so if you want to meet at 2
Oh,
o'clock on the
that's
18th.
right. You're,
No, we can do it on the 18th,
I
because
mean, 17th.
you
is
might be
o-
drinking green beer on Monday.
No, not Irish.
So you drink orange beer.
18th, you're available? You're available on the 18th then? You available on the 18th?
Yep,
Yes?
yes.
Ally?
I think so. Let me just see.
2 o'clock, Mike?
18. Okay, yep, I'm
Yep, 2 o'clock on the 18th. So we can do that for the 18th. What I would like to do is at least get the ambulance out of the way for the first item that we're going to talk about. 3:18. So the ambulance is $494,000, and was there some extra dollars with that, Gene?
I'm sorry,
On that 494 for the ambulance?
I just rounded to the nearest thousand.
And so it's 494,000?
Yeah.
Where is that located?
Let's just quote right here.
Oh, so we're not doing this page anymore. Okay, so,
No, so we're just going to break it up. This comes out of the ambulance receipts. So if nobody has any objections to that, what I'm looking for is if everybody agrees, a motion on,
I move that we fund the 494 for the ambulance out of ambulance receipts. Or recommend funding.
and the ambulance would include the ambulance stretcher, the battery and charger, the stretcher mount, the chairlift, the cardiac monitor.
Just not,
Oh, no, the cardiac monitors are, the cardiac monitors, the only thing that's not there is the CPR machine is taken off, because those have been done. That changes that bottom amount to 494,000. There are 2 cardiac monitors. I'm going to make the assumption that that's to be able to put one on each ambulance. They're replacing both of them. There's not 2 for one ambulance. So motion's been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Ben, you wasn't quick enough.
That's fine.
Any further discussions or questions on this? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that's done. So why don't we, do we want to move forward with the Chapter 90 money, the 360, and the 100,000 for the special stabilization account for the fire truck, and the 23,000 for the document storage room, HVAC?
you have all the information we need, I don't see why not.
Okay. is that-
has
you want-
what is the state giving us, 360?
They give us 363 by, in normal years, I don't know what they got this year. Do you
Yeah,
know that,
that's-
Gene?
I
Yeah,
don't think it's finalized.
No, it's not finalized yet. So in the past, it was 363, and we've made a habit of matching that, and so we came up with 360. So that's what we're gonna,
when would it be finalized?
Matt, do you remember what the sheet was still under consideration, correct?
Yeah, because they have to issue a bond to fund the program. I'm looking at front mount mowers. I'm sure what they cost, and they're more than 29,000, just a little
Yeah.
hint. We got a letter with a number in it, and then we've got another letter from the governor's office
with a vague
with a
statement.
vague statement about legislation that has been proposed. So it's usually right around the middle of the summer.
So that's before, after.
Their
the
fiscal
town
year.
meeting.
Correct.
And after the construction
Yeah.
season starts.
Yep.
But doesn't it go by your road miles anyway, or something like that? how many miles of road you have. so-
That's a bigger,
Yeah.
big part of the allocation formula, but now they've built in other things.
But the personal opinion, there's no reason for us to not continue with the same process that we've used over the last 3 years anyways, 3 to 4 years of appropriating that $360,000.
That all comes from the gas tax, right?
No, Chapter 90, you know when you blow through the stop signs and you get a ticket and it says such and such?
Yeah.
Chapter 90, CH 90, that's Chapter 90.
Yeah,
You're contributing to the repairs of our roads when you go through those stop signs.
but your gas taxes too.
Especially right there at the,
I don't know, but I don't want to, I don't care where it comes from as long as they give it to us. I don't know where it comes from, but I want to focus on what we're doing because I'm conscious of the fact that I want to make sure all of us get a chance to vote on this. And we're going to lose one of our members in 10 minutes.
I'd like to make a motion that we fund the $360,000 roadway paving repairs and associated costs for $360,000, $23,000 for the HVAC in the document room,
Document storage room, HVAC.
storage, and $100,000 transfer to capital stabilization fund.
Special stabilization.
Special.
Oh, yeah, capital stabilization, okay.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion or questions? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So,
Like,
why'd you do that?
because just get it
I
over.
almost adjourned. Yes, Gene?
I just want to make one point of clarification. This will be, what you just voted will be the third payment of 100,000 into the capital.
Thank you. So on Monday, why don't we still got 10 minutes before we talk about Monday. What do we want to do with fiscal year 2029? Do we want to try to divide that up and create our fiscal year 30 out of that?
I think so, but I'm not sure if we want to leave the fire truck there, because now we have 300 and we might have 400 or 500 or 600.
You're not going to have it because we're going to be buying a fire truck next year, and then your bigger problem's going to be that ladder truck. It's currently at like $1.8 million for that ladder truck. So this money that we're putting in is going to help offset the tanker truck that they want to replace. That's a tanker, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were saying take the two big trucks and move them 1 year?
Well, I was just looking at how we could figure out moving that forward. So 4 years out, that might not be a bad idea because that keeps $400,000. It should be about $400,000, 300 to 400 in there from the special stabilization to help offset that. So what I'm cautious of is knocking out all the smaller items that we can't do. We're back to where we were when we didn't have the stabilization. So to be able to still fund some of the smaller projects.
Yeah, just thinking, you said the fire truck
Yep.
may not be 750.
Yep. But my goal is to try to start working towards getting these more a reasonable numbers. Some of them, as the department heads give us guidance, maybe we can put that onto other years to kind of spread it out a little bit further, because we still can't just divide it in 2 years, because don't forget, add 460,000 to that number. That's the real number, because the following year still has 460,000.
And this led to my fleet
Yeah.
question, because
Yeah.
these are all, but
Right.
other than paving
Yep.
and stabilization, it's
Yep.
all fleet vehicles.
Yep.
Question?
Yes.
So if we're going to have another meeting on Tuesday,
Yes.
maybe we can,
We can revisit that. I'm not looking to force the conversation to have it voted on now, but I would like to on Tuesday. At least we had a little discussion about it,
Okay.
and if we can talk about it on Tuesday, but we seriously need to look at that year because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
way over any other year, and I don't realistically see us doing that all in 1 year unless we get a huge windfall somewhere. But there's so many other things that want that windfall, and I don't think that we'll stand a fighting chance. So, let's talk about that on Tuesday. but we need to address that and work that down. I don't know if everybody's comfortable with what we talked about in fiscal year '26 as to trying to take a little bit of a pause so we find out what's going on. We can revisit this in the fall at our special town meeting and resolve some of those issues. Last fall town meeting, we did quite a bit, last fall town meeting as well, which is actually on this fiscal year. So we are getting a lot done, it's just spread out.
So when you come before the FinCom in a couple of weeks,
Yes.
okay, I'll start with, are there some numbers you're waiting for in the next 2 weeks before you come to us? I think,
For myself, for the committee?
Yeah.
No, the only number
Okay.
that we're waiting on is on Tuesday for that front load, front mower.
Okay.
Anything else is in a pause mode, for lack of a better description, until we have better information, and that won't happen until early fall. Hopefully, we get it before the fall town meeting. But at least, getting towards the end of the summer, we can start up again, get ready for the fall town meeting, and see what we can get accomplished during that meeting.
will there be a warrant article related to capital then, Mike,
When?
for this May 5 meeting?
Oh, absolutely. We
Yeah.
just voted on the ambulance. We voted on the special stabilization account. We voted on the Chapter 90, and we voted on the room downstairs.
So a shorter list than what's listed here then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Well, a different list.
There, got it, yeah.
You have 500,000 for the ambulance, you have 360, so that's 860, unless Gene corrects me, it's 844, 54, and then you have 100,000, so that's 960, and then you have that, the room downstairs, that's 980, and then you put in the tractor, you're a little over $1 million. You're still spending a fair amount of money.
Yeah.
So it's not like that we're not spending money.
So, if I may,
Yes.
we always have list, and then we always have a 5-year plan listed in the town book.
Yeah, we have that now.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to talk about on Tuesday, and that's really, it's going to, by correcting fiscal year '29, we're going to create fiscal year '30.
Right,
We're still compliant with our 5-year plan
yes.
per the bylaw. But we're going to have to, and maybe we do that in the fall or after the fall town meeting when we start up the next year, have these departments come in and find out what has been completed and what hasn't been completed. Is it still urgent, or they no longer need it, or whatever the case may be? It's like I call the business agent with the school, with Gene at around 1:45, and I got that information that those 2 items have already been satisfied, which was good news to us, but we need up-to-date information. We don't necessarily get a list sent over to us that, oh yeah, we found a way to do that, we got a grant, however they did it. So. Did you look at the minutes?
I have not yet.
We got 3 minutes before we parole him. Yeah, so there's our list. In the fall, we did 438,533. And looking through the minutes, that's also something that we didn't talk about quickly, was we still have the fire department HVAC and generator work that has to be configured and challenged.
I'll move we accept the minutes of February 12 as presented.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Anybody else? Any further discussion? Seeing as none, all in favor?
Aye.
If you want to take off, Brandon, because you're about a minute or two to go.
All right, thank you all.
But we'll see you on Tuesday, we'll just talk
Tuesday, the
about that lawnmower. I'll reach out to the school department, or have somebody reach out to the school department, get an updated quote on that. So we have it for Tuesday. Anybody else have anything? Any questions? No? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.